You're listening to the Real Deal Podcast, Episode 1, for the week of April 3rd through April 9th, 2016.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Man Attic. I'm Kevin Pauly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And this is another edition of The Real Deal. This week, we're taking a look at producer J.J. Abrams' newest flick. Well, it's not such the newest movie out box office-wise, but it's only been out for a few weeks. We finally got a chance to see it, and that is the newest in the anthology, I guess, that's going to be set up, and that is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Brian and I literally just saw it last night and needed a night to kind of digest it. Mentally, I think, so we could figure out where we want to go with this discussion and how we feel about it. So, since we've had a chance to think about it and kind of digest it mentally, Brian, we came out of the theater. You literally looked at me and said, "I'm probably going to have to think about this a while." Yeah. So now that you've had time to think about it, where do you stand on 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Well, let's start out with what's good about this film.
Okay.
Certainly. The acting is amazing. John Goodman, he is. I mean, I think a lot of people they think about him as that actor who was in Roseanne.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people tend to forget just what a great actor he is.
He is so good in this film.
Oh yes.
It's like, I mean, I'm just saying this, and I'm not being snarky. It's like Academy Award level good for like a supporting actor role. I swear to God, he's that good in the movie. He commands your attention every second he's on screen. He is absolutely, the MVP of the film.
Oh, certainly. And, the thing about it, if I had any complaints about the performance, some of the stuff, his kind of craziness is a little bit on the nose. But I think that has more to do with what was required of him with the script and the direction and not necessarily choices that he made as an actor.
Sure.
But, certainly I was captivated by his performance in the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's so good, and like I said, it's just such an effortless performance by him. And that's usually the sign of a good actor, when it's just like they're not even trying. It's just they're just in the character.
Oh, absolutely.
And he really is. He's also such an underrated voice actor as well.
Oh, yes.
His work on the Monsters Inc. and Monsters University and The Emperor's New Groove. He is such a versatile performer. So I always been a big fan of his. This film definitely just cemented that much more. The other performance you have to talk about in this movie, though, is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Michelle. And she is absolutely a dynamic female lead. What I love about her in this film is that she is not the victim, not for a second in this film is she the typical, thriller or horror film, female trope of the damsel in distress. She is her own hero, and she is our hero in the film.
Oh, absolutely. She is definitely not. She doesn't have. There is a young male also in the movie
who's really good, by the way.
Who's very good, but in a sense, she kind of saves him more than he saves her in a lot of cases. She doesn't need somebody else to be her agency, and that. Honestly, Hollywood, more of that, please.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see a lot more of that.
She's such a smart character. And, the other person is John Gallagher Jr., who plays Emmett. And Emmett is much like Michelle. He's in this situation, and through him, we find out a little bit more of what's been going on. And we'll talk about the story here in just a little bit. But his character, he sort of has the unenviable task of being like the middle child kind of thing. You've got the powerful force that is John Goodman and the powerful force that is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And he just kind of has to play in between. But he does a really good job of being Switzerland here. He is the middle ground. He's the peacemaker between the two of them. And I really like the way that he is integrated into it. He's not the most important character, but he is an important character for the story.
Oh, and part of his backstory kind of helps develop, our lead character as well.
Yes.
So
yes, it does.
So that plays very well, I think.
It really does. So let's talk a little bit about the story, and we will be going into spoiler territory on this because in order to really describe our the feelings of the film, and I think I know where Brian's going to be going with this. Not necessarily mind reader, but I think I know where he's going. We have to be able to talk about the ending. So if you've not seen the film, please do not let anyone spoil it for you. This is one of those movies that we're in for a rare treat where the trailers don't tell you squat, and just go into the theater and just be prepared for something that's just really different and really fun and spooky and just great. I mean, honestly, I really would tell you, do not let anyone spoil this for you. So now that we said that, we're going to spoil it. So don't listen past this point if you haven't seen it. So anyway, just talking about the story. Now, as the trailers even show, we know that the situation is Michelle's character, Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays her. She's in a car wreck, and when she wakes up, she is chained to the wall of a room. She has no idea where she's at. She's got an IV hooked into her, and it almost feels like the opening of like a video game, like when it was like a BioShock or something, where you wake up and you're like, where am I and what is going on? And she has to figure that out. So the nice thing is, we as the audience are right there with her. We are finding things out as she finds things out. So nothing in the dialogue ever feels like exposition dialogue. It feels very fresh and very relevant because she has to learn what's going on so that we can learn what's going on as well. And I think that's really smart on the part of the screenplay and Dan Trachtenberg, the director. So suddenly, this scary sounding metal door, my God, that door is scary. Every time I heard it, it made me jump. Burst open, and in comes in John Goodman, and he's brought her food, and he's telling her she needs fluids, let your IV do its job and things like that. So so suddenly we're just kind of like, okay, well, what's going on here? She's being taken care of, and he's not doing anything to her. He's not physically assaulting her or mentally assaulting her. He's just literally making sure she's hydrated and fed. So then suddenly she is able to get out of her room and see what's going on, and boom, she's in like this really crazy like 1960s bunker. Built for a nuclear holocaust kind of thing, filled with food, and there's John Goodman's character Howard, and then there's Emmett. So it's really interesting because it's three people in one location. I mean, it can almost be a stage play in a lot of ways. It really could. So suddenly, here she is trying to figure out what's going on. And, I think, Brian, I'm sure as an author and as a horror author as well, you probably really dug the way that they set this thing up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love a nice claustrophobic story. And, of course, in horror, you always have to explain why it is that someone stays in a bad situation when they could maybe go out the door or call the police. And in the plot, of course, all that's explained. There is nobody outside, supposedly, and you can't leave, and so you're kind of stuck in that situation.
Well, and talk a little bit too, why is that set up? Because that is explained, why she can't leave. So talk a little bit about
part of that has to do with, of course, is that John Goodman and that character and Emmett also, they explained that while she was in this accident and she was out, that the world had gone to hell. There was
all they know is some sort of fallout, right?
Some sort of something was happening. She had heard an announcement on the radio that there were blackouts, and apparently even the atmosphere outside is poison. If you go outside, you are dead. So they are stuck where they are, basically.
And of course, there's the whole thing throughout the story of you're wondering how much of it is the truth,
right?
Because every time she's able to see outside, it's like sunny and everything looks normal. And, you're just like, well, wait a minute. Now, that seems really awkward. Why would that be the case? And so John Goodman's character is very insistent on the fact that they cannot go outside. And they're probably going to have to stay down there for at least a year or two so that whatever's in the air can be, removed and they can actually get out and breathe normally and see what's happened. So, that's what I find very interesting is the whole time you're literally wondering what is real and what is not. Is he telling the truth and is he not? And there are things that happen, and we're not going to get into spoiling everything in this film, but there are things that happen where you find out that maybe he is not a reliable, source of information. That there are lies that he tells them to their faces. And when Emmett and Michelle were able to talk in private, they realized that, wait a minute, that's not at all right. He told me this one thing, and it was not this, and it was actually something else. And suddenly it's like there might have been someone else who was here before, and maybe there was someone else here, maybe that person is dead, and we don't know what's going on. And so it really builds. I mean, the tension in this film really builds, and it's not like cheap scares, it's not jump scares or anything like that. It's genuine tension of three people stuck in a really bad situation in a really claustrophobic space. And what happens when one of them, the person who basically saved you, let's add that, okay, assuming what he's
Right.
saying is true. The person who saved you, who's providing you food and shelter and water, and you can even take showers and all that, all the luxuries and niceties of living in a home. This guy provides it for you.
Right.
But we know that he's not honest, and so he's prone to short-tempered feuds. He can be rather bullying and not necessarily violent. At least not at first. We just see him have little snaps and little
Right.
moments of quick bursts of maybe like a shout or a slam or pushing someone against the wall, but not like pulling out a gun or anything like that. And so the tension continues to build with these three people, and so we start seeing like a few points. We actually start seeing like them having almost a family existence.
Right.
They're building puzzles together, and they listen to the jukebox, and they eat dinner together, and they have like really nice dinners, like steaks and all kinds of good stuff.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting that you see them, and you see Emmett and Michelle. What's nice there is they don't force this romantic subplot that's not there. Honestly, their relationship is very almost brother and sister, and
Right.
I really dig that because Michelle talks about her past, how she was abused, and her older brother took the punches for her basically when her dad was in full form, and and in the end, as we'll get towards that, we find that almost plays out with their relationship in there as well. For you, Brian, as someone who writes, and looks at developing a story, how did you feel about the actual development of what's going on in the bunker?
Oh, I mean, for me, that was certainly the best part of the movie. There was a great dynamic there. Now, if I were writing this, would I have tipped off John Goodman's situation so quickly? Probably not. I probably would have run it a little more subtle. I would have possibly wanted there to be a little bit more doubt about maybe his mental state, where maybe a little bit too early in the film you get the idea there's a problem with him. And I think maybe that happened a little bit too soon. But besides that, I would say that, I mean, for me, the developments in the bunker were definitely, for me, the strongest parts of the film.
Right. Now, again, we both said the acting in this is top notch. I mean, it is absolutely an acting tour de force. And the thing is, with a film like this, it kind of has to be. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't care about these characters at all,
right,
we're going to check out real quick. And the thing I like about this movie is it's only like an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, it's not even a 2-hour long runtime. It's exactly the length it needs to be. It never outstays its welcome.
Right.
And I think, again, that's very smart. It's very well paced. So we'll fast forward a little bit. We're not going to get into all the details because we really do want you to experience the things in the film. But where we're going to talk about our ultimate looking at the film is the ending. And the last 10 minutes are really out there, like in the way of like, holy crap, they really went for broke on that. That's very impressive. Okay. If you've seen the original Cloverfield, of course, it's a found footage tale about a giant Godzilla-like monster that comes out of the water and wreaks havoc in New York. This film has nothing to do with that at all. Like, nothing. The only correlation, there are two minor ones. One of them is, of course, we still see the Slusho brand at the little convenience store. Slusho is something I think that J.J. Abrams has had in everything since like Alias. And in the original Cloverfield, if you read all the online web connections and stuff, the Slusho company is owned by some Japanese corporation, and they were the ones that were possibly doing this mining work, and that possibly disrupted the creature and made it rise up, and then there you go. The other connection is John Goodman's character of Howard. Howard's character, we find out, worked with satellites and did a lot of like covert work with the military and things of that nature. At the end of Cloverfield, there's a shot where the main couple is on the Ferris wheel. And in the very background, if you watch carefully, and man, it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing, you'll see this little piece of debris fall from the sky into the ocean. What's falling into the sky into the ocean is the satellite, one of the satellites that Howard worked on. And it's that satellite, when it makes impact, that really is truly what disrupts the creature from its slumber from the original Cloverfield, and that's what makes it come up and attack. So Howard has that connection to the first movie. Other than that, though, this film has zero connection to the first one. There are no giant monsters. There's no parasitic monsters off of its side or anything like that at all. There is not even a mention of the incident in New York City. This is way out in the Midwest, so this has no connection to it whatsoever. So in the end, there's the mad dash for Michelle she's just determined to get out of this bunker because she truly believes that it's all a lie, and she's absolutely going to get out. Now, once she breaks free of the bunker, to me, this felt like an awesome episode of The Twilight Zone. And I say that as some of the highest praise I can ever give anything, because The Twilight Zone, I think, is one of the best television shows in the history of the medium. She gets outside, and she's made this homemade gas mask, and it's really clever how they do all that too. And so she's breathing in the whole gas mask, but she looks up in the sky and sees birds flying over. And she's like, no, wait a minute. If there's birds, then that means I should be able to breathe. She takes off the gas mask, and you can hear creatures around her. She can hear like birds chirping. She can hear insects, chirping, and crickets in the distance and stuff. And she's able to breathe, and there's no problem. And then suddenly she hears this odd noise. And then she looks in the distance, and you think what you've heard all this time has been helicopters. And it turns out it's a giant UFO. It's like an actual scout spacecraft. Now, Howard's character has mentioned multiple times in the thing that he believes that the Martians were eventually going to find out about us and that they were going to send an assault. And of course, you chalk it up to him being nuts and he's just like a delusional conspiracy theorist. But in the end, you find out he was right. He was absolutely right. And this alien attack force has hit, and they've gassed over the population with this stuff that makes you bleed out, and it's awful. And they're capturing people, I guess, for food sources or whatever. So she suddenly realizes that there's one of those creatures near her, and she has to find a way to get away from it. And there's this whole crazy, scene with a giant UFO trying to capture her, and the UFO even has like an alien mouth kind of built into it, like it's almost like a suit for whatever is in it that somehow flies and eats things. And she's able to destroy it, and she drives off. And as she's driving away, she finally picks up radio interference, and she's able to find out that there are people out there who have survived. There are people who are fighting, and by God, she joins off to join the resistance and fight back. And that's where the film ends. And I was like, wow, okay. This is definitely like one of those make or break kind of moments. This is like, let me think of a film that this really reminds me of, like that kind of, this is where people either were with it or they weren't. Like The Mist. That's a good example. Stephen King's The Mist, okay? A lot of people, when you watch The Mist, they're fine with it up until that last 10 minutes. And then that last 10 minutes, they're either like, yep, that's very Twilight Zone, that's very right spot on, or other people are like, F this movie, F it in the A, and if it were a thing that had a visible appearance, I would punch it in the throat. So it's, and I know people on both sides of that. So this film definitely, I mean, I will tell you this, they swing for the fences on it. They truly go out there, and I totally applauded them for doing it. But this is definitely that moment where you could say they went too far, or they went, you applaud them for going crazy and going out there, or you're like, nope, you just absolutely kind of crushed it. So, Brian, I think I know where you're going to go with this, but what did you think of the ending, and why did you think the way you did?
F this movie. F it in the A. Yeah, I really had a problem with it. It was this ending for me, and I know you liked it, and I think people should like it. A lot of critics liked it. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. It absolutely does not work for me at all.
Why is that? Because, I mean, he even mentions in the film the
potential
of aliens.
He does. He does mention aliens, but he also mentions Russians. Mm-hmm. There's also talks about zombies. The thing about it is... No.
He said zombies couldn't happen.
Well, he said but I mean, the movie mentions. I mean, because Emmett talks about zombies. Yeah. But the thing about it is, let's just say, for an example, let's just say that they did test screenings of this film. Mm-hmm. And they decide, and the studio comes back and they said, well, the alien thing, it's just not really working for test audiences. Can we maybe change the ending so that it's Russians? It's a Russian invasion. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how much of the previous scenes in the bunkers would need to be reshot? None of them.
No.
Not at all. The ending has nothing to do with what we've seen in the bunker. It really doesn't. You could have made this like Clue. You could have shot multiple endings and kind of stuck them there.
Yeah.
In the ending, it could have been anything. It could have been zombies. It could have been clowns with chainsaws. You could have put anything out there. And the problem is, if your story, to me, if your story doesn't at least lead up to that, where changing the ending changes the story, that's a problem for me. It really is. And the thing is, yes. John Goodman's character does talk about UFOs. Well, he talks about Martians.
Yeah, Martians.
And these creatures, I mean, they're obviously not Martians. Martians are green. Everybody knows that. But the thing is, and this is why the ending did not work for me, is because he didn't say Martians because he had any reason to know that there were Martians out there. He's just crazy. That's what crazy people...
I disagree with that.
But,
I think he mentions the fact that he did satellite work and that they did do work with extraterrestrial communication. That is mentioned. That he does actually, he was getting space waves and stuff.
But he doesn't, there's no way for him to know that these are Martians, okay?
Well, he just says Martians. He could just be saying that as just,
but
like you say Coke for any beverage that you drink.
But there's also really no reason for the audience to think Martians, although that's not as big of a point. But the thing is this, the fact that he thinks it's aliens and it happens to be aliens is a coincidence.
It could be.
But
it could also be that he knew. I mean, if he did work for the military and he was doing covert work with, information that we don't know about, things that we're not privy to, and they even talk about the fact, what if this disease is something that we don't know about, something that was developed somewhere we don't know? That there is enough, I think, there that to me, it didn't feel like a cop-out. It didn't feel like it wasn't connected. It felt like, to me, there was a connectivity to it, in that the idea was, what is the most fantastic thing he says? Potential space invasion. And he even talks about how they would do it. They would invade the first round. They would wipe out as much of the population as they could. The second round is the scout force. When she gets up there, she's seeing the second round. Because the first round has already happened. They've wiped out a whole bunch of the population, and now they're sending in the scout teams to come in and do it. I mean, he literally tells you, like, what they would do. And I just feel like, to me, there was enough there to connect it. Now, I know I'm not going to sell you on it. That's fine. But I feel like, to me, there was enough there to connect it to the story, to where it didn't just completely feel out of left field for me. And part of it too is where you hadn't seen the original Cloverfield. I knew they were going to have to do something that would be on the level of crazy monster thing or alien or something. I knew they would have to do something kind of out there, because if they are going to make this an anthology, as Abrams has talked about doing, I just couldn't see it being that subtle of just them in a bunker. I mean, don't get me wrong. The stuff in the bunker is so good that it's really worth seeing just for that. Even if you don't like the ending, I will tell you, you'll like everything up to it.
Oh yeah, and I certainly did. Maybe he did see something when he was in the Navy. Mm-hmm. Maybe he did, although he didn't really ever indicate that maybe he did. So I mean, still to me, it just seems too much like a coincidence. And the problem with me and story is that coincidence kills story. It really does, and it does for me. And I know you say Twilight Zone, and I'm going to disagree with you on that for this reason, because I am a huge Rod Serling fan. And if Rod Serling was doing this, and he was going to do Aliens, here's the thing. He would have set up John Goodman's character so that he wasn't a crazy person. He was just a sane person who knew something that was incredible. And so that when you look back at the way that he reacted, it makes perfect sense. Because he happened to know something, and no, he's just crazy. He really is crazy.
See, the final thing he says to her is, "Stay with me. Don't let them get you." It's something to that nature. But he tells her to stay with him, because he knows that there is something out there.
Yes, but the thing about it is, you have this other subplot with this girl in the earring. Now it doesn't really go anywhere, but it seems like they are pushing toward the fact that he is nuts.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's not a stable human being.
He's not a stable human being, and I think in Rod Serling's hands, the story would not have made that character that obviously crazy. It would have been questionable, and looking back at it, it'd have been like, yeah, we thought he was crazy, but he was right. Mm-hmm. No, in this movie, he's crazy. He's flat out crazy. In some senses, they kind of beat you over the head with the fact that he's crazy. Now, trapped inside of a bunker, that's a pretty scary thing. And up to that point, yes, the movie works for me, but then you leave, and then it's aliens out of effing nowhere, And I know, you say, well, they were kind of tipping it off, and I don't feel that they were, at least not to a point where I feel comfortable with the fact that you come out and there's suddenly aliens, It didn't work for me. I could understand it could work for some people. For me, unfortunately, no, it didn't.
Okay, well, that's fair. Well, as we're wrapping up the discussion on 10 Cloverfield Lane, and we're going to have some other stuff we'll talk about here in just a minute, but in the end, when it's all said and done, Brian, would you recommend 10 Cloverfield Lane to the people listening to this podcast?
I think up to the point where the lock comes off and she goes outside, fine, beat the traffic.
So you're almost on the recommendation side. So
there you go.
We'll disagree on this one, and we don't do that very often. But for me, I would highly recommend it, if only just for the performances alone. The performances of John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead are really
no question.
I mean, they're a masterclass.
No question.
They really are. They put on tremendous performances that you are sucked into it from the word go. Like, there's never, like, any scene that you're just like, oh, let's get to the next scene. Every scene is very engrossing because we're learning more about her, we're learning about him, we're learning about Emmett, we're learning about what's really happening to them. So it continues to progressively move the story forward, and none of it, and again, that's the danger you have sometimes in films like this, is who's going to be, Norman Exposition, who's going to be the guy that explains everything, and you're just left saying, okay, there's no, they really do a good job of bringing you up to speed along with her. You're learning things that she learns, and I think, again, that's the great thing that they do about this is they throw the audience into the water with her. Like, it's sink or swim, and I really, really dig that. So for me, it gets a recommendation from Brian. He says up until the last 10 minutes. So yeah, as soon as you see her pop off the padlock, just leave and think to yourself, it was just crazy and she got out. And there was nothing out there and it was fine. So you can go that route. So that'll wrap up our discussion on 10 Cloverfield Lane, but we're going to go over some other stuff we want to just kind of talk about. Our podcast now, since we have a little more freedom to not have to worry about the video editing and all that kind of stuff, we can talk about more stuff. So we just wanted to kind of go over some other different cool stuff. So Brian, I'll let you start the combo.
Okay, well, first item in the news is everyone knows Superman's vulnerability to kryptonite, but apparently he's also vulnerable to second weekends. Several news sources are reporting that earnings for Batman v Superman have dropped a record-breaking 81% from its previous Friday opening compared to this past Friday. It also managed to remain the highest remaining earning film this week at $52.3 million, which is still a 68.4% drop from earnings from last week. And with next weekend's new films ready to premiere, it'll be interesting to see if Batman v Superman can recover or even keep its number one spot next week. Kevin, what do you think so far?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not one of those who's like, let's just find new things to bash over the film with and stuff. It is interesting that the film has dropped off that much, especially considering the fact that a lot of kids are on spring break. And so you'd think that there would be still a pretty strong uptick in ticket sales. That's actually, if that was the number one film of the weekend and it only pulled in over 50 million, then that's a pretty lackluster weekend in general for the box office, which I find very surprising because there was no holiday this weekend. So it's not like you had Easter Sunday like you had last weekend, which could explain a drop in ticket sales because it's a religious holiday and people get together with their families. This weekend, though, there's really no excuse for that, and there was no competition. As far as a new film opening up against it, the number 2 and number 3 films were still like Zootopia
here's the thing, Zootopia, not only did they not have a drop off from last weekend, but in some markets Zootopia actually took the number 1 spot over Batman v Superman. Not the huge markets, but there were some markets.
Well, and the thing is that's a testament to how great Zootopia is. As you heard on the podcast when I did it last week, that will be a top 10 film for me. I truly, truly adored that film, and everybody I've talked to who have seen it have all said the same thing. They're like, this is such a smart movie. And with Batman v Superman, there has been the general consensus. I have met more people who, I'm not going to say there are people who flat out hated it, and there are people who flat out loved it. But the majority of people I've met are right there in the middle of meh, which is where I kind of was on it, in that there are some really good things in it, but there's not enough good things that outweigh the bad, and I have zero desire to go see the film again. Yeah. So it's a film that I think there is where the issue lies. Unlike a Star Wars: The Force Awakens, unlike an Avatar or something like that, where people are going back to see it again and again and again. This film, I don't think we're seeing that, and part of that, I believe, is just the fact that it is such a heavy film. There's very little joy to be found in it. I mean, again, I'm speaking from my standpoint. But the majority of people I've talked to have been on the man, it just was such a dour film. I mean, it's such a downer of a movie. And that is something that, yes, there are great things in it. But at the same time, are you really in a hurry to go back and sit down for another 2.5 hours of mostly depressing stuff? And I'm not.
Yeah, and like you say, do I want to go back and see this in the theater again? I don't. But I will say, I am kind of curious about this 3-hour-long R-rated.
Well, especially with the cut they released on YouTube, the little scene with what is supposedly Steppenwolf, one of Darkseid's, heralds, I guess. Yeah. And so that's interesting because it definitely sets more things up for the appearance of Darkseid. But of course, to me, if you're a comic fan, they almost beat you over the head with it by the time you're done with the film. I mean, the Omega symbol and the dream and stuff alone, the parody,
Right.
you've already got that. You figured it out. But it is cool that they definitely forwarded it in there. It's an odd scene.
It certainly
it's definitely
is.
one of those, if you weren't a comic book geek, you'd be like, what the hell did I just watch?
Exactly.
As most people on YouTube did. But to me, like, the whole box office thing, I mean, yes, the drop-off's there, and it's going to be. I mean, but people are trying to say, well, it was worse than the drop-off for Fan4stick. And, the thing is, Fan4stick didn't make a whole lot of money to begin with. So
yeah, there wasn't anywhere to go.
There was nowhere for that film to go but down. But with this, I think it's interesting because I think most people, especially like, those who track box office and those who are, into film, would have honestly felt that a film with Batman and Superman would be kind of untouchable to where bad reviews aren't even going to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. Now, it's opening weekend, you can kind of make that argument, but for it to have that kind of drop-off for the second weekend, I just find that very interesting because it's, again, there was no competition for it. Right. The other films it's up against are films that have been out for a couple weeks. They've been out longer than Batman v Superman, which has only been out for 1 week.
Right.
So I find it very interesting that drop-off has been that sudden.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big drop. And the thing is, when does the Jungle Book open? Is that next weekend?
That's not this coming weekend, but it's a weekend after.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'll be stunned if Batman v Superman remains the #1 film once the Jungle Book comes out.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk more about the movies next week because there is something that I'm thinking is going to come up this next week that might give Batman v Superman a run for their money. But we'll definitely discuss that.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, as far as the box office stuff, it is an interesting number. I'm not going to sit there and say that the film is a failure. It's definitely not a failure. It's definitely made money. And if budgets are, if what they've shown is true, what it's made internationally, it's basically made back its budget and its marketing budget, which is a big deal. I just think that when it's all said and done, I'm going to be interested to see what the final numbers are because just remember this, we got this film because Man of Steel didn't deliver the numbers they thought it would. Man of Steel worldwide made over $600 million, and that's a great accomplishment. But in that same summer, Iron Man 3... the third film in a series, and honestly, of all the Iron Man films, the one that probably had the most divisive response from the audience, that film still made $1.3 billion worldwide. It basically double what Man of Steel did. And that's a pretty telling number. That's why they immediately went from, instead of making Man of Steel 2, to, oh dear God, we've got to figure out something, bring in Batman v Superman. And so, if this doesn't bring in the numbers that they expect it to, what does that mean for the future of the DC Universe? And I'm not saying they're going to quit it. That's not the case. They've got too much invested into it. But my question is, will Zack Snyder continue to be attached as the director for all these big films coming up? Because if you look at that list of films with the biggest drop-offs, 2 of the other top 5 drop-offs, one was Watchmen and one was Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So he now has 3 of the biggest drop-offs from week 1 to week 2 in the history of the recorded box office. And if Batman v Superman doesn't deliver on the promise that they thought it would, will Zack Snyder still be there directing the Justice League or the parts 2 and on? Obviously, he's working on the first one now, but will he still be attached to it to the level that he is? Because he's now shown that he is not indestructible. I mean, he is not able to completely continue to deliver hit after hit after hit because he had a really great run, up until really Sucker Punch. Yeah. And then Man of Steel did okay, but again, if you look at the worldwide numbers versus what they wanted it to be, it would still be considered in Warner Brothers' eyes a disappointment. Yeah. Which is why we have Batman v Superman, which I think it's funny that David Goyer 10 years ago says that's the film you make when you're all out of ideas and your last-ditch effort. Yeah. And here they are making it, and he's, of course, on the staff of writing it. So it's like, I just got to wonder, what does that mean? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we'll certainly see after Captain America Civil War, and we see those numbers, that's going to weigh on Warner Brothers as well.
It definitely will be something they'll look at.
All right. Well, also on the DC front, Birth Movies Death is reporting that Warner Brothers has ordered reshoots costing, quote, tens of millions of dollars, unquote, to add more humor and lightness to their next DC film, Suicide Squad. Although it may have something to do with the reception of Batman vs. Superman, the positive response audience have had with the Suicide Squad's upbeat, funny trailer may have a lot to do with it, which is problematic since a source told Birth Movie Death's reporter David Farisi that, quote, every joke in the movie is in that trailer, unquote.
Ooh.
Kevin, what do you think about that?
That's kind of scary because to me, you and I both said when we first saw the trailer for Suicide Squad that it felt like they were automatically jumping on what was going to be their Guardians of the Galaxy. and they're trying to make it their DC film universe's version of Guardians of the Galaxy. It's that bunch of rogues, bunch of criminals who join together for the greater good. You look at the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer and they're using Hooked on a Feeling. You look at Suicide Squad, they're using Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's like boy, they're really trying. They're really trying here. And we even know that they've got Batman in it. So by God, they're really feeling the push of Batman. So. Here's my thing. I have not been super impressed by either trailer for Suicide Squad. And a big part of it is I'm of two minds of it. I want the film to work because it could be a really cool film. I mean, it really could. I like the Man on the Mission story, Men on the Mission story, like, The Losers or The Expendables. I mean, I kind of dig that, and it's really fun when you've got a whole bunch of superpowered villains because, hilarity should ensue. I'm not crazy about Margot Robbie's take on Harley Quinn. She looks like a bunch of different girls I've seen cosplay her, but at least usually the girls I see cosplay Harley Quinn do the Arlene Sorkin, that New Yorker, Miss the J kind of voice. And she's just talking normal, and I'm just like, there's nothing really clever about anything that she's saying or anything she's delivering. Does she look good? Sure. But, I can see hot-looking versions of Harley Quinn at any con I go to and not have to, worry about going to the movie theater to see it. So I hope, my gut feeling is they're going to try to really make her like the big attraction of the film, maybe even more so than Jared Leto's Joker. I don't know. He's been so minimal in the commercials, and then I'm sure they're saving him for more stuff. But It just feels like they're really trying. I mean, she's even getting more screen time than Will Smith is, and I find that very interesting.
Well, she is in the trailer.
In the trailer. Now, I'm not saying in the actual film. We'll see how that plays out, and my guess is it won't be quite the same. But I really do feel like they're really trying to push her as a big part of the universe. And the thing is, to be honest, I loved the character when she first appeared in Batman the Animated Series. And I love her, the way they integrate her into the Arkham Asylum games and stuff. But to be honest, I'm kind of Harley Quinned out. Mm-hmm. And I'm not crazy about every one of the characters in the group at the Suicide Squad. Because there's been a whole bunch of different DC villains that were in it. The Penguin's been in it, and of course the Joker's in it. You've seen some really cool heavy hitters from the DC criminal universe that have been a part of it. And most of the ones I'm seeing here are just kind of like, do I really care about Captain Boomerang? Not really. Do I really care about Killer Croc? Yeah, no, not really. It's just like, I don't even really care that much about Deadshot right now. I just, I don't know. I hope the film is cool, as I hope with any of these films. I always hope that they just entertain me. And again, as a big superhero fan, the more of these films coming out, and the more they succeed, then the more we'll get, and hopefully, better quality. At the same time, I don't want crap to be rewarded for being crap, because then all they're going to keep making is more crap. And you can make that argument about like the Transformers films, definitely, which I've hated all 4 of them, and I've only seen 1 in the theater. So it's like, I just, it's, there are just certain things they feel like they should be untouchable, and yet they end up kind of falling apart. And I hope this works. Now, the reshoots, obviously, this sounds like a desperate attempt to cash in on both Guardians of the Galaxy and Deadpool. I don't think anybody and their mother expected Deadpool to make the money that it did, and a part of the appeal of Deadpool, of course, is the comedy. Now, Suicide Squad seems very lined up for that style of humor. And again, it's that kind of film, like the 15-year-old me would be like, oh my God, I can't wait to see Suicide Squad. It's going to be so edgy and cool. And now 40-year-old me is kind of like, I just hope it doesn't suck. Yeah, so it's like, absolutely. It's weird out, again, 15-year-old me would be like, oh my God, Harley Quinn, she's so hot. Oh. But now I'm like, okay, I've seen Harley Quinn, dear God knows how many times. So I hope that this is not... My hope is that the film was already strong enough that they were like, okay, let's just add a little bit more humor because, well, we have had a lot of people talk about that with Batman v Superman. I hope it's not like a complete distrust in the product that has brought them to, oh dear God, add any kind of sense of humor that you can. Yeah. Because we have to have people laughing and walking out saying it's the funniest thing ever and making it like the next Deadpool.
Yeah, so that's which is going to be difficult to do. And the thing about it, what bothered me about this news article was that, and we've all seen these on YouTube. We've seen the clips where they make The Shining look like a family comedy. Yeah. They make
which is brilliant, by the way.
And they make Mary Poppins look like a Scary Mary. So you can make a trailer look like just about anything.
If you edit it right, sure.
If you edit it right. But the thing is, it looks
like Man of Steel. That third trailer made it look like it was going to be like an emotional, like joyful film. And it wasn't.
Well, they thought it was, but not exactly. But the problem that I have is that Warner Brothers basically cut a trailer to kind of look more like Suicide Squad, or make Suicide Squad look more like Guardians of the Galaxy. But they knew that it wasn't. Obviously, they knew that it wasn't. So to me, that's deceptive. You're basically lying about what your movie is. That's bad business, especially now that before your movies come out, you've admitted, yeah, our film wasn't anything like the trailer, but we're going to make it look more like the trailer.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's a problem.
So we'll see. I mean, it comes out at the end of the summer, and it'll be interesting to see how it does in that August time slot. As again, that's sort of the tail end of the summer season. I'll be I will be interested to see like what competition it still has from whatever's come out like in June and July. Like, will it just kind of stay out there on its own and probably make a lot of money because of that? Much like Batman v Superman has had, again, that opening weekend really into competition. So that'll be interesting.
Well, Kevin, since you mentioned Deadpool, Deadpool is still in the theaters. It's still earning money, and it has broken yet another record. Earning globally at this point $754.5 million. The highest grossing R-rated movie of all time now passes X-Men The Last Stand and their $747.9 million global earnings to become the highest grossing X-Men movie of all time.
That's insane. Wow. Good for them. I mean, when you realize that whole thing got made because of a demo reel that Ryan Reynolds leaked. And now 20th Century Fox, allegedly. But now 20th Century Fox says, wow, we made a demo reel, and look at that. It's made friggin' $750 million. And imagine if it hadn't been banned from China, how much more it would have made, because that's one of the biggest markets overseas.
Oh, yeah.
So when you think about that, I mean, my gosh. But the thing about Deadpool, it was smart marketing. They totally marketed what it was.
Yeah.
Well, you had no question it was going to be breaking the fourth wall and go for broke and be, very juvenile and very crazy and just nuts. And it was. It was smart marketing to bring it out around Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job with that. And the other thing is, I mean, again, it was very faithful to the source material. It was giving the fans what they wanted, but then it was also not so siloed in its comicdom enough to where anybody else could come in and enjoy it as well. It's interesting that a rated R film could make that much money. And because it seems like nowadays Hollywood is so, like the rated R is the kiss of death. Yeah. It's got to be PG-13. And yet it just beat a PG-13 rated X-Men film to become the highest grossing X-Men film of all time. That's very impressive. And it's also telling that, your audiences for these comic book films, we're people who grew up with them, but, we're getting older too. We're okay with, give it a little bit of an edge, And I'm not saying make it dark and gritty. I mean, that when it fits, it makes sense. Right. Dark and gritty makes sense with Batman all day long, as it should. That's the nature of that character. It makes sense when you watch Daredevil, and Jessica Jones on Netflix, TVMA, which is basically rated R. It makes sense because it's a grittier world. It's a take on that. So I'm not saying it has to be dark and gritty to get the R rating. I'm just saying it's okay to have a little bit of edge to it. It's okay to have language. It's okay to have nudity. It's okay to have violence if it fits the world of the character. And in Deadpool, it very much did.
It certainly does.
I'm not saying Deadpool's a perfect film, but I think it's a great Deadpool movie. And as I said, to me, my 15-year-old self would have sworn it was like the greatest thing I'd ever gotten away with seeing. Like, I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. He made dick jokes and he did masturbation jokes and there was, boobs and there's this and there's, I was like, and there's Colossus and then there's, fighting and he talks about it like, this is the greatest thing ever. So yeah, 15-year-old me would have been like, oh my God. But even 40-year-old me was like, oh my God, they actually did that. It was great. So, this is definitely a movie that I'm amazed at. Again, it had pretty much, for the most part, really solid critical response. I think on Rotten Tomatoes, it's still a fresh rating, which is huge. Okay, it had great response from critics. It had great response from the audience. Of course, God knows how many kids I actually saw in the theater when I went to go see it. To which I was like, "That's either the best parents ever or the worst parents." I don't know, but but it's like it's amazing how globally that film just really took off.
It did.
But it's smart marketing. They really marketed that film well.
The thing is, everybody complains about Batman v Superman because it's like, if you saw the trailer, you saw the movie. In a sense, in Deadpool, if you saw the trailer, you kind of get what the movie's about, but it just kind of encouraged you to see it. Now, I know we didn't get a chance to review Deadpool because we were on hiatus.
Right.
The funny thing is, I'm Brian the story guy. For all intents and purposes, I should have hated this film. Hated it with the fire of 1,000 burning suns. I should have hated this film. And I'll tell you why, because there's zero tension in this film at all.
Oh, there's none. You
have a main character. You have a main character who can't die, so you can't worry about him.
Nope.
You have a villain, and he spends the whole movie kicking around like a puppy.
Yep.
He beats the guy. Like not even over a third of the movie, and the guy manages to escape. The girlfriend gets captured, but you don't for a minute think anything's going to happen to her. I should hate this movie, but this is why I don't. In books, we have genre novels and we have mainstream novels, but we also have what's known as the literary novel. And in the literary novel, there is no plot. We're not worried about plot. We just have an interesting character. Mm-hmm. An interesting character that's so interesting, we're willing to follow them through their mundane day. We don't care, because all we care about is the character. And we love the character. In a strange way, and it kills me it's funny to say this, but it's true. Deadpool is a literary movie.
Yeah.
James Joyce. Now, James Joyce books aren't going to get made into movies anytime soon. This should not work in a Hollywood movie. Literary novels shouldn't work. But it does here, because Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, he was born to play this character. He was genetically engineered to play this character. It works. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But he's so much fun to watch, and all the in jokes are funny that it's great. It's like it would be an exercise in pure just stupidity to try to make a movie like it by any other studio.
Yeah.
So DC, if you're planning on that Psycho Pirate movie, put it to the side. Don't do that. So.
Yeah, Deadpool was definitely one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. It's definitely a film I really enjoyed as well. So, again, I can't recommend it to everybody. Like, I definitely wouldn't recommend it to my parents, but to those people who like the character, by God, if you haven't seen this film, get out and see it, because it's totally worth your time.
Okay, so finally, these are the movies that are opening next week.
Okay.
We got The Boss, it's starring Melissa McCarthy,
Yep.
so we have that comedy.
Yep.
Demolition, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Naomi Watts.
Yep.
The Invitation, a horror film directed by Girl Fight director Karen Kusama.
Oh, which I haven't seen a whole lot on that.
Yeah, it's sort of a dinner party that goes as badly as any dinner party in a horror movie you could expect.
Well, there you
to
go.
So certainly I'll be interested.
But Girl Fight was a well-made film. So
yeah, so I'll definitely be interested to see that. And I love seeing more female directors, especially in horror.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward. Hopefully it's released nearby. I'd love to see it. Also, we have Louder Than Bombs, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Gabriel Byrne. Mm-hmm. And finally, we have Hardcore Harry, directed by Ilya Nesular.
That's been one of my favorite trailers
Yes.
this year. The one that's actually scored to Queen's. Let me get. I can't think of the name of the song now. Gosh, but that trailer is fantastic. It's such like one of those movies. It's a trailer where you're watching it and you're like, how in the hell did they do that?
Yeah,
well, the entire thing. Now I've seen the short film and it's amazing. Like, it really is. And then you think about making an entire film like that. It's ballsy. I mean, you cannot deny the fact it is truly like a bold move to make an entire film from that first-person perspective.
Where I ran into this director the first time, and you may have seen this. You may not have known he directed it, though. Did you remember the Portal movie? The little Portal short film that's out there?
Yeah, the guy who directed that did 10 Cloverfield Lane, Dan Trachtenberg.
No, oh, that's right. Trachtenberg did, certainly. I'm sorry, I got him confused with him. But no, I mean, you look at this; it's very frenetic. Literally, the audience is definitely they're the viewpoint. I mean, you watching the movie are the character going through all of this.
It feels like, next to Edge of Tomorrow, possibly the greatest video game movie ever made. It's not even based off of a video game.
Yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow made it work with the whole idea of you keep getting killed, but your man keeps coming back to life and you keep getting through. This feels like, again, like those great first-person shooters around, like your Call of Duty, your Halo, things like that, where it's like you are in this person's head.
Exactly.
Literally, you're in their head. You're looking through their eyes. And that is going to be interesting because it's very reminiscent of like the found footage films, only at least watching the trailer, and I've seen it on the big screen a couple of times now, I never had like that motion sickness that one that can get sometimes from those found footage things because the camera's jerking all over the place. This is pretty steady. I'll be very interested to see how the whole thing plays out.
Yeah.
Is there enough story to it to make the exercise worth doing? Because you can have a great looking film like that, but if there's nothing really to it to offer, that's going to be the trick. So I'm very interested in seeing it. I love Sharlto Copley, so the fact that he's in it automatically gets me interested.
Exactly.
The trailer, again, very smartly edited, very, very fun.
Yeah.
I have to go see it just because of the fact that it's something different.
Yeah. Now here's the question: we have a young director Certainly known for great visuals. I mean, this is a movie that we've never seen its like before for the most part.
No.
I mean, a first-person action. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Is this a Batman v Superman killer?
I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why. One, because it's not like based off of something like a comic book or a movie that people know about. You know what I mean? Like most people are just not willing to take chances a lot of times on a film that they know nothing about. Like if it's not connected to something they can look up and find out about, because it's a lot of money to go to the movie theater. Yeah. And it's a risk sometimes to say, okay, I know I've heard of Batman v Superman. I know about Batman. I know about Superman. So I'll probably go see that versus Hardcore Henry. Now, if it does, that will be awesome. But the other reason I think it won't is because, honestly, I've not seen a whole lot of promotions for it. And that kind of bothers me because it's almost like they're afraid to promote a whole lot because they don't want to spend a lot of money on promotion in case the film doesn't make it back in the box office. But word of mouth, again, we've seen how word of mouth can really make a difference with these films.
Right.
So my hope is that it does well. I don't expect it to beat Batman v Superman because I think Batman v Superman will still pull in over 35 mil next weekend. And I don't know that a Hardcore Henry can come out and blow it out of the water with some $40 million opening when it's not based off of an established thing. I mean, I hate to say it in this day and age. If you're not based off of an established property, it's hard to get that kind of push. Or if you don't have like the branding of a Disney or something like that, it's tough to get that push. Would I be surprised if it does? Slightly, but I don't think it will in the end. What do you think?
What I think is, I mean, if it does take the number one spot next week, yes, for a lot of reasons that you said, I would be surprised. I mean, Batman and Superman are IPs that people know.
And to be honest, I think I even said when I first found it was coming out, I was like, this film will probably be the number one film until Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah.
But then the reviews started coming in, and now we've seen the box office with such a drastic drop.
Yeah.
That I don't know for sure now that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is that although it might not take the number one spot, definitely a film this unique, if it gets some press and people find out about it, I think it will hurt Batman v Superman business.
It's definitely going after a similar audience, a similar age range. Definitely like that 20-something to 40-something male. Okay.
Yeah.
And probably even the teens as well, because it definitely has that video game aspect. And that's your target audience for a Batman v Superman as well. Now, where it might make its money is the fact that most people on this planet have already seen Batman v Superman.
Everybody who was going to.
Everybody who was going to has pretty much seen it. So if that's the case, then this film could have an uptick in ticket sales just because it's something different.
Yeah.
And hey, I already saw Batman v Superman, so let's go check this out. It sounds pretty crazy. Let's go see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hope it does well. I mean, I hope it's a good movie and it does really well. That's the big if. We don't know. I've not seen any reviews for it yet. No upfront reviews, and I'm sure we'll see this pop up this week. But it definitely looks interesting. I definitely will say when I saw the trailer, I'm like, you know what? I'm there. No matter what, no matter else what I see about it, read about, I'm definitely going to go check it out just on the trailer alone. And it takes a good trailer to make me say, yes, I'm going to do that. And it's a really, really good trailer. So it's, to me, Don't Stop Me Now. That's the Queen song. Who's going to come to me? Don't Stop Me Now. Such a great, pairing with that wonderful trailer. So, if it works, then, hey, that's awesome. And I'll definitely be glad. Well, I'm sure we're talking about it next week.
Right.
So my hope is that it does. Anytime a new property like that comes out, my biggest hope is, man, I hope it wows me, and I hope it reminds people that you can go see something, and I love comic books and stuff, but you can go see movies that aren't based on comic books and still have a good time.
Oh, yes.
That's why I was surprised, honestly, the 10 Cloverfield Lane has actually done pretty decently.
Yeah.
It's made look over $60 million.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, what's funny about 10 Cloverfield Lane, getting back to that, is, man, that film came out of nowhere.
It did.
I didn't even know it was being made, and then there's a trailer, and I'm like, what is John Goodman doing? What? And then it says Cloverfield, and I'm like, what? Yeah. And that's 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I'm like,
where did this come from?
Where did this? Yeah,
they
talked about that.
They totally kept it under wraps. In fact, they shot it near New Orleans, where John Goodman lives. So he was just like walking over and doing the film,
which is amazing.
And they just kept it completely under wraps,
And you just don't see that anymore.
No,
and it's so smart, so great.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing about it is, my hope for Hardcore Henry is that it's a good film, that it does well. But it's not such a good film and does so well that we see about 60 films just like it in the next 6 months to a year.
Oh, Hollywood, don't just duplicate it just because it makes money all the time.
Yes.
Keep it special, keep it original. Now, it'll be interesting because, again, with that first-person perspective, how it's shot and how it moves will be a big, it will really help tell the tale, because films like Blair Witch Project and Cloverfield, a lot of the complaints you hear coming out of the theater was, oh, it made me sick. I had to like turn my eyes away. I couldn't, it was just too much. So this film, though, like I said, it's interesting. The trailers never made me feel that way in the theater. I'm just like, man, how on earth did they pull this off? And just from a technical standpoint, I want to go see the film.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just to even see it. I mean, it's one of those where I'm like, man, I can't wait for the Blu-ray so I can watch how they made it. Like, just can't wait to see how they did that. Because there are certain movies you watch and you're like, how in the hell? And this looks like it's going to be one of those. So that's, to me, very exciting. And I did mention earlier how it reminded me of the video game film, kind of like a Edge of Tomorrow. Just on a quick note, Edge of Tomorrow, such a great movie. Just watched it again recently with a friend of mine who hadn't seen it. And he was like, man, I feel bad for missing this in the theater. Yeah. If you've not seen Edge of Tomorrow, gosh, I have to recommend that film so much. That's been one of the cooler films I've seen in the past 5 years. Brian, just real quick, I know you saw it with me. What did you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. It was certainly a unique, interesting film. I mean, we did a review on it.
No, we didn't get to do that.
Did we not do it?
No, we didn't get to do it.
Did we not? You see, sometimes I don't know if we did the review or we just talked about it a lot.
We talked about it a lot.
Which is kind of a lot.
We reviewed it for a bunch of friends, but we didn't actually do a review on it.
I mean, there were certain parts of it that, but I mean, for the most part, it was a lot of fun. It was certainly, again, it was one of those films that, for some reason it seemed like the studio didn't have quite the faith in it that they should, because they kind of stuck it in a weird,
Yeah, it was an odd place in the summer. It wasn't the title, Edge of Tomorrow. I mean, it's funny, the Live, Die, Repeat part of the campaign was so popular, and that's what most people think of. And if you actually look at the Blu-ray case, it's Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. And I think what most people got turned off by is if you just saw on the marquee Edge of Tomorrow, I said, that sounds like a damn soap opera.
Well,
you wouldn't know that was what the film was.
Yeah, literally it's a title that tells you nothing. It's a title that tells you nothing about the movie.
The graphic novel is based off of from Japan. It's called All You Need Is Kill. And I'm like, man, that's such a great title. Just go with that. It's crazy. Why not?
Yeah.
But Edge of Tomorrow is definitely one of those I highly recommend. If you've not seen it, give it a shot. It's definitely up there with Dread 3D and Battle for the Planet of the Apes is like some of those awesome science fiction films in the past few years that just really blew me away. We'll do maybe sometime we'll take some time to review those. But anyway, that's it for this week on The Real Deal. We look forward to joining you again next week here in the Man Attic talking about Hardcore Henry, and if we get a chance to see anything else, that too. And again, just maybe talking about what else coming up in Hollywood, other film things that we like. Now, if you're interested in having us talk about some particular things, please feel free to leave that in the discussions below. Let us know of any topics coming up of either films that you love and have already seen, or films that are coming up, or just trends in general that you want to talk about. Make sure to leave a note for that there in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And again, we appreciate you taking the time with us up here in the Man Attic. And again, we hope that you will continue to join in on the conversation. So please leave those comments for us, and we will be glad to respond to those next week on the show. So for this week, I am Kevin Pauly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
This has been The Real Deal, and we'll catch you next time.